All right, welcome to episode 10 of the Relationship Comeback Podcast. I told y'all we're just going to continue to bring it every single episode. And today we're going to bring you some very insider information where it's going to absolutely change the way that you're using these dating apps, and it's going to help you find your person. And then you don't have to even listen to this podcast anymore. And so today we have on Alexia from Mutual. Alexia, tell the billions. I've been doing millions, but I'm just going big. Tell the billions
We
of
might as
fans
well.
what's up.
Yeah, go big or go home. I'm like promising that people will meet their person. It's no pressure, no pressure there,
You're
right?
promising that too, or you're saying that I'm
No,
promising?
you're promising
Oh,
that.
okay,
I'm
I am
like
promising that.
I need like a disclosure here. Like if you do or do not, it's not on me.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll introduce myself a little bit. So I am a digital marketing manager for Mutual, and I've been with them now coming up on 3 years, so a hot minute. And how I got into that is so I finished school, I went to BYU, Idaho. I got a degree in biomedical sciences. So
Exactly what Mutual's looking for.
exactly, yeah, exactly what they need at a dating app is somebody who knows chemistry. So
Wait,
um,
what did you just get it just to get it,
no, so I
or
was
did you
going into
actually
something
want to
entirely
pursue that?
different.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was something I was pursuing. And when I was graduating, it was like right in the middle of COVID. And so it was one of those like, take whatever job you can get, basically. Like a job is a job. So I took a job in Arizona and I moved there all by myself, didn't have any family there. And so what do you do when you get to a new city? I was like, oh, I'm gonna get on Mutual. Might as well go on some dates, meet some people. And I went on just like a random date and we were talking about, you know, just our singles awards. And the one I'd gone to, I was like, this is not it. And he's like, oh, well, you should go to this other ward instead. And so I checked it out. And within a week of being there, I got called to be the Relief Society president, of course, and as one does. And so they had me speak in Sacrament, and the at that time, the CEO of Mutual happened to be on my state council
Mm.
and heard me speak. So we got some connections, and some time went by. I worked for some various like tech startups in Arizona, and I got presented an opportunity to move back to St. George to work for another tech company here. And that ended up not working out. And the day after I left that job, I got a message from the CEO, and he was like, hey, like, would you be interested in working for Mutual by chance? And kind of the rest is history. So
Wow.
ended up now I'm doing marketing. Yeah, it was a very interesting, like right place, right time. So it's kind of like ironically enough, I got my job at Mutual because I chose to go on a random Mutual date. So
There you go. There's the plug for going on mutual dates is maybe one day
yeah, if
you'll be able to
anything,
be the digital marketing person for them.
yeah, it'll just get you a sick job. So it all works out.
How is being single also working for a dating company? How has that kind of influenced your perspective of working for a dating app company? Because I would imagine you have
Yeah.
people there that are married and it's probably different for them, but you're probably on these apps while promoting them. So how has that kind of shifted your perspective of working there?
Yeah, so we're not a huge company, and I am the only employee that is not married.
Are you
So
serious?
I am the lone soldier. Yeah, we always joke that I'm Mutual's DSP, so I'm the designated single person. And so it's kind of funny. I feel like as I've worked for Mutual, the pressure on my own dating life, it's still there, but I've become a little bit desensitized to it just because it really has shifted my perspective that I'm like, okay, like as much as I feel like these issues are very personal and singular to me, there's so many other people going through the exact same thing, if not having a harder time than I am. And it has really allowed me to like things roll off a lot easier because it doesn't feel as personal, if that makes sense. So that's shifted. And then as far as like marketing goes, obviously I'm marketing to my exact demographic.
Right.
And I feel like it's been really good. Our messaging has shifted a lot in the last 3 years. And if you were on Mutual back even 3, 4 years ago, you'd notice that a lot of the messaging used to be very, very marriage heavy, where it was a lot of celebrating, like, oh, look at these married people. They met on Mutual, and that's great. But something I push pretty heavily when I came in is that we're a dating app, we're not a marriage app. And I'm like, we're skipping way too far ahead. Like, people don't even know how to date. So why are we skipping to the end point of marriage? And so we've shifted a lot of our messaging to be more surrounding that, you know, regardless of how you feel about any specific thing, there are other people going through that exact same thing. And you're not as like as hard as this is, you're not the only one feeling this way. So whether that's our whole like tagline thing is the feeling is mutual. So whether you're like burnt out of dating, like the feeling is mutual, there's other
Mhm.
people who are feeling that exact same way. Or if you're like, I love dating, it's so fun and I'm going on hot dates every weekend. The feeling is mutual. Like we're so happy for you that things are going great. And it's just we've widened the dynamic a lot with that to like try and shift the perspective that people aren't as alone as they may feel just because they're single. So
Yeah, I feel when I get into those spaces of like going to a YSA ward where you see bigger, like the YSA convention that the church puts on, and you're
mhm.
like, I don't know if it makes me feel better or worse that I'm not alone in it in the
Little
sense of like how many
commiseration.
people are struggling with it. But then it also, like you're saying, it does kind of take the pressure off of, okay, I am seeing success in this way or whatever. And it just kind of allows you to
Yeah.
breathe a little bit that you aren't the only one, maybe.
And success is just so subjective too. It's like some people would define success as like, oh, I started talking to a few new people this week and that's a step forward to me.
Hmm.
Or success for some people might be like, unless I have a rock on my hand, I'm considering myself a failure at dating. And so it all just depends, I feel like, a lot about your attitude and like what you're seeking as far as like what success looks like to you. So
Well, I just would like to have a rock on my finger, so that's it. So
you're like, where's the
that's the
girl?
only
Just you're
way
like,
to
I'm just
success in my
waiting.
eyes. So, all
Yeah.
right, well, give us your just brief, 1, 2 minute. Are dating apps good? Are they bad?
Yeah.
Probably
This
somewhere in the
is like the
middle,
hot
but
topic.
give us
Yeah.
give us your take on that real fast.
Yeah, so I think for me, especially as an employee of Mutual, getting to work with the team, um, I feel like a lot of times people will have the perspective of, well, dating apps have ruined dating. And I'm like, okay, is it the app or is it the people on
Mhm.
the apps? Because in all reality, it's just a platform. And so I'm very much for dating apps can be good if you're using them right and you have like the right attitude about it, but it also can be something super damaging and like really hurtful to people's self-esteem if they're choosing to also use it that way.
Mhm.
So I very much like I can see either direction. But I will say like in working with the executive team at Mutual and just people overall, like they care so much about the individuals on the app. And it's funny how often I get told, um, like Mutual probably just wants to keep people single because they make more money that way. And like, really, no. Honestly, we in our weekly company meetings, we always read some sort of like people will submit to us their stories and how they met, and we always read them. And people are so excited for those wins and successes. And like, just as much the opposite way, we're really sad when things don't work out for somebody. And the amount of times my boss and I have sat down and had conversations, and he's like, Alexia, he's like, I just want it to work for you. I'm like, me too, dude. Me too. So I think it really does that depends on your attitude and your perspective and what you're looking for from it. So
No, I listened to a podcast from the Soloist podcast where they had the CEO, anyways, high up exec of Mutual, and that was one thing that came across loud and clear is like we're not. This is a business, but we're not trying. Like we want people
we're
to
not
meet
trying to
and
make
get
this
married, and
harder
that's
for
one
you.
thing I
Yeah.
was really impressed with. And so I would agree with it's how you use it before, because I think today we're going to talk about how to use it in a positive way, how to use these apps in a way that will help you be successful. Can you give us an idea of some of the ways that it might be damaging? Because I think
Yeah.
maybe giving us some like guardrails of like, hey, this is I'm seeing this hurt people's self-esteem, or I'm seeing this, affect people's ability to form real relationships. What are some of the cautions you would say we got to stop doing this because it's not helpful?
Yeah. So obviously when people are filling out their profiles, everything is kind of like on your own honor integrity system. That's not something we tell people like, oh, you only went to church once in the last month. You can't put that you go to church as often as possible. It's all kind of on an own integrity system. And so I think something that becomes hard is people will want to take people for their word and people almost start to treat their profiles like it's a business and they almost get too serious with it. And I'm like, you have to realize that these are all people that are imperfect. And sometimes people will take things too personally when they're like, oh, you need to force people to respond on the app. Like we've gotten feedback like that where they're like, think that we should be almost like penalizing people if they're not as responsive or that people should be forced to respond to others. And it just creates this toxic environment that I'm like, that's not going to help you form any sort of, genuine conversation or genuine relationship. Or I'm like, you want to be on a date with somebody who actually wants to be there.
Right.
So if we're forcing people to respond to you, then that's not helpful in any way. And I think another thing is just learning that not everybody who's on the app has the same intentions as you. And as much as we would hope that people would have good intentions, you do have to kind of use your common sense sometimes and like be protective of yourself first and not take things so personally when people don't. Like, I feel like as somebody, I'm a very empathetic person. And so in a lot of situations, I will be like, well, why did they do that? I would never do that. But
Mhm.
just because you wouldn't doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't either. And just learning not to take those things so personally and just allowing, like, if somebody doesn't respond to you back, then okay, that's probably not the relationship you were looking for anyway. Or, there's always they're real people outside of apps and they have a whole life going on. So sometimes they might not respond to you just because they're genuinely not serious about dating. And that's obviously not a relationship you want anyway. But people do actually have things going on and they could just not be responsive because they could have other things going on, and that's okay. And I think that's like a big thing that people need to realize is that people are not just what's on their profiles, and you can only see so much about a person based off what the app shows. So,
Yeah, no, I think those are good. I feel like I was talking to my mom for a little bit there of like, why isn't this person respond to me? And I'm just like, whatever, I don't, anyway. So,
yeah,
but I think that's a good caution to, at least, and again, I don't know the right or wrong way to do it, but to me, it seems like the principle is trying to keep expectations realistic, especially with
yeah,
people you're meeting or messaging, and trying to, especially like if you meet somebody in person, I think maybe the expectations are a little bit different, but trying when you meet
yeah.
somebody on the apps, trying to have
Keep it
realistic
realistic.
expectations. Because like I
Yeah,
heard listening to that podcast with the CEO, I think he said like the average person before they like get married or meet someone, they're on the app for like 2 to 3 years. And so like to me, I was like, oh, okay, like this date is probably not going to lead to me being married. This match
yeah.
probably is
And it
not going to
might,
be being
but it's like it's not fair to set those expectations on somebody else and then being disappointed when they don't meet them.
right.
I think that's like the overall thing. Yeah.
So let's calm down a little bit, take a breath, and let's restart. Let's figure out how to do this right. So
Yeah.
let's dive into, again, I know you're maybe not an algorithm expert, but let's kind
Hmm.
of dive into what can we do to set up profiles in a way that's going to allow you to present yourself in the best fashion? Because I, at least for me, coming home from my mission, I dated someone for a little bit, broke up, and I was honestly kind of excited to get on the apps because you kind of hear about it and it's kind of
You're
like
like, let's
drugs
see
because
what it's all about.
we
Yeah.
don't do drugs in Utah, so you're like, this seems like kind of close where I can just be getting this
Hmm.
dopamine hit all the time. I'm probably gonna just be on going on dates every single day. I put these crappy pictures on there, and you get like one match a week, and you go on like one date in 3 months, and by the end of it, you're like, I should probably be in therapy because I have just confronted some demons for the last 3 months, and then you're
Yeah.
just like, what is wrong with me? Fast forward. I whatever refine myself, try and do my best, try and take some nice pictures, and I put forth the real effort into my profile, and then I'm getting that result of, 3 to 4 dates a week, able to actually
Mhm.
find success on these apps. So I want us to kind of maybe help people understand how we do that. How do we set ourselves up in a way to portray ourselves like in the best manner, but also kind of understanding the game of the app. So maybe let's
Yeah.
start with girls and then we can go to guys on, or unless it's the same principles, but
Yeah, it's pretty universal. I actually do have some facts for you. So I don't know
okay.
if you're a stats guy really, but a lot of people are really interested in the algorithm and they're like, well, when do I show up? What does that look like? So when the app first pops up and loads, you're shown 50 people within your filters. So within those batch of 50, they try and include people who meet people who are recently active on the app, people who have high quality profiles, people who have liked you recently, and then there is a mix of people who obviously pay for like a premium subscription are thrown in there because they do get a little bit higher priority to be seen by more people. So that's a little bit of a sum up
That's a
of how
pitch
that
for
works.
getting the premium.
Well, and to be completely honest, like the premium is great if you're one of those people who is very specific about what you're looking for. If you're like, hey, I need all these advanced filters because maybe you're somebody who, you've been divorced and you have kids, and you're like, I also want to be with somebody who understands that. So I only want to date other divorcees. Then in that aspect, it may be in your best interest to pay to be able to filter more specifically. But if you're somebody that's kind of like, I'm just here trying to just go on dates in general, I'm casting a wide net, then you're probably fine without it, honestly. And kind of some
Loki, I just
tips.
want to
Yeah, go
see all
ahead.
the people in Brazil that liked me.
Yeah,
That's what I
there you
want
go.
to know.
And you
I'm
can.
just
If
kidding.
you're somebody, well, and people will do that where they're like, I travel a ton and sometimes I like to see who's single, where I'm going to be traveling, so maybe I can have some fun dates lined up. And so for
Mhm.
them, it might be in their best interest to have premium so that they can, travel to those other places prior, get dates set up. But it's really up to people's own
Yeah.
discretion. I'm like, you're fine with it, you're fine without it. It's really just up to you. So,
Okay, so
um,
how do we present
yeah,
ourselves in the best way?
so some tips to get your profile seen more is one, like you said, investing in a good profile. So you want to have your profile is all about storytelling. And so you don't want to be too one dimensional. So if your photos or every single one of them is post work, selfie in your car, and every single one of your photos is that's not telling us anything about you. And I'm sure you've seen that where it's like A, either people have too many group photos, or B, people are doing the same thing in every single picture. It's like a mirror selfie or something. And you're like, all I know is that this person cleans their mirror really well, and that's pretty much
Or they
it.
don't, and then it's even
Or they
worse.
don't. Yeah, and you're like, no, thank you, not
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, investing in a good profile. We always tell people that your profile should be you with what you love.
Hmm.
So, for example, if you're somebody that likes to go play pickleball, you might want a picture on there of you playing pickleball with your friends. Or if you're someone that maybe you have a job that you're really proud of and you're like, yeah, I'm like this really cool economic professor of this and this, like have a picture of you at something regarding your job. And I think the more well-rounded profile you're able to have in different situations that provoke curiosity, the more success you're going to have. Because you want to give people something, an opportunity to ask questions about. If, yeah, like I said, if all your pictures are you in your car or in front of a mirror, that doesn't really tell people much and it doesn't really give them much segue to be able to start a conversation with you. Um, Something we've been telling people to do recently is in your prompts, even ask questions for people to answer, because sometimes people do genuinely want to start a conversation,
Mhm.
but they just don't know where to start or what to say. And I'm guilty of this firsthand. If somebody messages me and they just say, "Hey, what's up?" A lot of times I don't answer because I'm like, really? Like we can we can do a little more than that. And
Right.
so if you, for example, have a picture of you traveling or on a hike or something like that, that's something that's important to you, then you could follow up with a prompt that says something like, um, tell me where the next place is on your travel bucket list. And that invokes like that conversation and gives people something to respond to. And then you don't even have to worry about sending the first message because the conversation is already going. So that's something we definitely like recommend that people do. So yeah, invest in a more well-rounded profile. And then the second thing is to use it frequently. And I know you're probably like, well, of course you want people to use it frequently. Like you work for the app. But that's how you remain active in the algorithm. If you only open your app every 6 months, likely you've been kicked to the back just because they're like, oh, this person's never on here. And we're wanting to provide the best experience for other users on the app as well. So we're not doing them a favor by, them seeing people who are never on the app.
Right.
Therefore, they won't be getting any matches and then they get frustrated and then they leave. So remaining active on the app keeps you in that recently active category. And so people who do filter by recently active, you'll be popping up more in their feed. So those are probably like my
Yeah.
top recommendations. Yeah.
You mentioned one thing. You said if the app, whatever algorithm deems you as a high quality profile, how does it kind of filter that? Is it by the likes that you get, the swipes or the interactions? Like
Yeah.
how does the algorithm kind of gauge this is a high quality profile? Because I've definitely seen that, like, first couple of stints on Mutual, it was like, yeah, this profile sucks. And then it just,
Yeah.
you get tanked in the algorithm. But when people are swiping on you, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm just constantly in the
Killing it.
algorithm. So
Yeah.
how does it, deem that? Like,
Pick
is
that
it
up.
the first? Because like this is a little tip and trick. So this is worth a I had all of my girls that are friends in St. George. When I got on Mutual, I said, go and swipe till you see me and swipe up. And so
Yeah.
within
Yeah.
the first
Definitely
like
helps.
hour or whatever, I had like five or six just boom, boom, boom. Like, and again, I don't know how helpful that is, but I was just like, I got to do everything I can to boost the algorithm a little bit. So how does it gauge a high
How does
quality
it
profile?
capture? Yeah, so something that so on average people's profiles are shown to 2 to 300 people a week. So for context, that's like a good sized ward.
Right.
And we always tell people we're like, if you knew you were going to be seen personally by 2 to 300 people a week, you probably would take the time to put in a little more effort to like present the best version of yourself. And we can see, so your app, your profile does tell us when you were one most recently active on the app. Two, if you've made any updates recently. So if you've recently updated your profile, you're seen as somebody who's most recently active, you get kicked up in the algorithm because you're more active. So updating your profile frequently, being active on the app, you also your friends helping you and liking you, that does help because we do get categories of like, hey, these are our profiles that are seeing higher success and are more frequently liked. How can we mimic that and help people, kind of copy that so that they're also seeing that same success? So if you're somebody who does get liked more frequently, you do get kicked to the front of the algorithm more frequently than those who A, aren't as active, B, aren't getting liked as much. And it's not like you're not getting dinged if you're, a profile that isn't getting liked as much, necessarily, but you're just not, it's typically those profiles are that way for a reason, and it's because there's not very much effort going into them, like you said.
If you're listening to this and you do have a profile that's just been tanked in the algorithm, would you say to just restart or would you say
Yeah.
to just update it? Because that's one of the things that I was like, is it better like if you've been on a break and you're using that account, like to me, getting back on, I don't see as much success. So I just
Hmm.
restart. Is that what you would recommend doing? Is just, hey, just create a new one and try again? Or is it mutual reward you for keeping the account or anything like that?
Yeah. So it really is just up to your own like personal discretion. I know some people don't like to delete their current accounts just because they're like, well, what happens to all my likes? And if you are somebody that has messages and things you might want to come back to, then I would say just update your profile. But if it's like, oh, I have not touched my account in months, like it's dead dead, we say if you're not attached to any of your messages or anything in there, then you're totally fine just to create a new profile because you do get that initial boost in the algorithm. A lot of times, if it's been sitting inactive for a really long time, you probably don't have very updated photos on there. We've probably updated other features to the app as well. You're probably almost better off just restarting. We always recommend you can reset all your down swipes. And so before you delete anything, try that first. And then usually within like a week or so, if you're not really seeing any results, then you're probably better off just starting a new profile.
I like it. So we gotta take pictures of ourselves, of doing things that we enjoy that tell a
Yeah.
story. We gotta try and be active and try and update your profile every once in a while, and that will allow you to stay pretty good in the
Yeah,
algorithm.
stay active in the algorithm. And as well, something people are like, well, how we always tell people the whole purpose of the app is we want to get you off of it to go
Mhm.
on dates. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes it's like you'll almost have too many matches or too many conversations going
I
on,
mean,
and it
yeah,
feels
dude,
like,
basically that's me. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah, you're like, yeah, thousands of likes, but it does happen, and people almost have this. it becomes a bit overwhelming and mundane where I'm like, okay, I'm having the same conversation with 15 different
Mhm.
people, and then none of those become proactive because you're not actually spending the time on them and giving them the attention that they need to lead to an actual date. And so I would always recommend if you're somebody who does have a high, I would probably say anything higher than 50 likes, try to keep your matches to five or less at a
Mhm.
time. Five or less, so you're actually genuinely paying attention to those conversations, giving them the time they deserve. And I wouldn't go having a conversation with more than five people at a time. And it's hard because you do have to make the effort
Yeah,
of
you're making
keeping
all
it
these Utah Candy
organized.
girls be like, no, my
No,
affirmation.
yeah, exactly. But if you're serious about it and you're wanting to actually go on dates and you're using the app for what it's intended for, then that's not a huge sacrifice. And it helps you have better quality conversations that lead to actual dates. And, if you're having a conversation and it's meh, and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to go on a date with this person, archive and move it from your feed, match with somebody else and start that conversation. And I feel like that's kind of the better way because I don't know. I'm guilty of this where I'll end up with an inbox. It's just like a mess of conversations, and my boss will look at it, and it's like all the notifications that are like your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn, and he's like, "You're the problem,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm aware," but
Yeah, well, I think for me, and this kind of leads into our next question. Like, I didn't realize how big of a problem this was on the guys' side until I saw my friends that are girls mutuals, and I was like, they're not putting in any effort into their profile. I was like, no wonder I'm doing better this time around because they're
it
literally.
doesn't take
I'm
much
like,
to
this
stick
is
out. It does
embarrassing.
not.
I'm like, this.
Yeah,
I'm like, I feel bad for y'all first off, but then I was like seeing what these guys are messaging and what there's and I'm like y'all aren't even what the heck is like I felt like I was like what is like I
am I
felt like
being
I was shifting
punked?
towards the
Yeah.
girls side. I was like yeah maybe the guys are the problem, like this is
hmm
embarrassing. And so kind of getting into that, like how do we what's the way to, because again like you're saying, like yes you got to start off with matches, like that's how you lead to dates, but that's not, you're not using the app to get matches. You're hopefully using these apps to get to dates, to make real meaningful
hmm
connections. What are kind of your insights that you can give us into getting conversations going and started that are going to lead to potentially more meaningful conversations, more meaningful dates instead of just staying in the inbox? So what would be your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, kind of what I said initially, make sure you're actually investing some time into a conversation. And I get that sometimes first messages, there's always the argument of who should message first? Should it be the guy? Should it be the girl? I am of the opinion, I'm like, does it matter? Like, if you want to have a conversation with somebody, have a conversation with them. If you're not willing to put in the effort to send a first message, then you're probably not taking it very seriously anyway.
Mhm.
So then it's like, and if you send a first message and somebody doesn't respond, that's okay. Like I said, you kind of have to learn to just let those things roll off your back. And it's like you want to have conversations with people who genuinely want to be there too. So if anything, you should take it as like, oh, that's totally fine if this person doesn't respond because I don't want to be, talking to somebody who is not, as committed to this or as interested in this as I am. So you're probably saving yourself in the long
Mhm.
run. Another thing is like once you get those conversations going, don't let it sit on the app for too long. Like the whole point is to get into the real world and on a date and meet people. And I always joke, I'm like, as soon as it starts to feel like it's a pen pal situation, I check out
It's so
because I'm
bad.
like, especially if I understand if there's some distance and you're like, hey, like we're not going to be in the same area for a while, but even like move to text or
Right.
FaceTime or something. I get a lot, especially from the girls' end, but I'm sure it happens on the guy side too, where they're just nervous about meeting up in person, especially if they're like, oh, I've never met this person. Like, I'm a
Right.
little nervous about it.
Which I
Or
would imagine
from,
as a girl is more real than
yeah, yeah, there's definitely, some safety concerns. And I always tell people, I'm like, if you're really that nervous about it, or if you're unsure, ask them to just like, hey, can we FaceTime really fast? And if somebody's weird about hopping on a FaceTime, then that's probably a good indicator that, something's a
we might
little
have a
amiss. But
catfish
anybody,
situation going on.
well, and I will say, so something that's nice with Mutual is all the profiles are verified by actual people. We
Yeah,
get asked
take
that
that
all the
weird
time where
Book of
we're like,
Mormon picture and you're like, it's like one in
yeah,
the
yeah, or
morning and you're
the
like,
the
I
scouts,
can't believe
yeah, people
somebody's
are
gonna see
laying in
this
bed
picture.
and there's like three double chins
Yeah.
and yeah, I get
You
to see
should
those
put
and
that
they're
picture
great.
on their profiles. That'd be
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, there you go. We're like, look, they're verified. This is
Yeah.
them. But yeah, everybody who's on Mutual, 100% real people, 100% who they say they are. And we do have occasionally we'll get people who will try to get on the app. You know, it happens with any app that you're on, but we actually those are flagged to us and like you can't show up on the app until you're manually verified by an actual person.
Hmm.
So the chances of those actually getting into your feed are next to none, essentially. And we started within this last year, we've integrated some AI features to our like system of processing profiles. And people who've been banned on the app, if they verify their profile, they'll get flagged as facial, is similar to a prior banned user. And so that's helped a lot with keeping some people on the app that should not
That's
be there.
wild.
So
That's so
yeah,
cool.
it's yeah, it's crazy.
What would be some tips? Again, I think for the most part, guys probably should message first. I did a paper last semester on how much more successful girls are if they do message first. So that's
Yeah.
just a little plug for y'all girls. If you do message first,
Shoot
it's
your shot. If you
way
see
more
somebody you
likely
think
to be
is cute,
successful.
yeah. Yeah,
But
exactly.
for the guys, what are some like is it more important to be funny? Is it more important to be curious? Is it more important to whatever like what's important in some
What's
of
the
those
secret
initial
sauce?
conversations? Like how
Yeah.
do you get a response? And I would just be curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I would say anything that could be small talk with your parents, avoid that as a first message.
That's a great
So,
rule.
anybody who's just like, hey, what's up? How's it going? If it sounds like it's a text message to your mom after you missed her phone call, then it's probably like not a good first message. Um, I really like when people ask me something specific about maybe like a picture I have on my profile. I'm way more likely to respond to that because it's something that I'm like, oh, they took the time to notice this specific thing. They're asking a question about it. So it seems like they're genuinely interested in having a conversation with me, not just entertaining their time or, like you said, the dopamine boost. And yeah. So if you see something interesting in somebody's profile, so for example, like on this call, I see you have a Dunder Mifflin mug. So I'd say, oh, like, do you like watching The Office? Or what do you think is the best episode of The Office? Or what do you think of Scott's Tots?
Right.
And those are like good segues for people to start an actual conversation as opposed to just the generic, like, hey,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've learned if it's an interview question, you shouldn't be asking it.
Yeah.
Like if
And
you're asking what do you do for work, it's like, oh my gosh, like that
yeah. And
girls
people who've been dating
need
for
like
a
some
really long
excitement.
time, we're tired. I'm
Yeah.
like, do not ask me my favorite color. Do not ask me what type of animal I would be. I'm not like it really there's other better conversations to have with people to get to know them.
Same principles for girls if they're doing the same thing, just trying to be kind of interested in their profile and showing that some way in their message.
Yeah, exactly. I think that and that's the thing. You have to give people something to ask questions about. So like you said, you're like, "Oh, I see guys' profiles and they're terrible." But girls also, I would say sometimes I'm somebody who I have a really good sense of humor, but sometimes people can lean too much into goofy.
Hmm.
I'm like, don't have all your pictures be you doing something goofy, stupid, because then people are like, "Oh, this is like a joke." Like they're
Right.
not. I think it's okay to show a sense of humor and be funny, but you got to know when to like rein it in and be like, okay, like I'm actually trying to go on dates and, every profile photo isn't just me doing something stupid with my friends at some like weird angle or because that does happen. So it's like take it as seriously as the results that you want from it,
Hmm.
is what I would say.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Where you're like, I'm trying to be intentional about this. What effort can I put in to it to kind of show that I'm serious about it? And again, like one of the things I try and do, especially to try and lead to more meaningful connections, is trying to keep it playful. I think the more
Mm-hmm.
playful you can keep it, again, I don't know why this is, but girls they want this kind of like fantasy swept off their feet. It just clicks. It's magic. Again, y'all deserve that, but it's hard to do that on an app. And the best way to do that I've found is to try and keep it playful, try and keep it funny. And I think the more you can do that, the easier it is. But I would also say, like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, if we're going on 4 or 5 messages and I haven't gotten the phone number yet, it's gonna die. Like it's not gonna
Yeah.
happen. And
Yeah.
so for me, I would say like you're saying, you don't want to be pen pals. Like you gotta try and secure that number within like 4 to 5 messages. And once you do that, at least for me, I try and call them. like said,
Yeah,
find a time
yeah.
to call because again, there's only so much you can do getting to know
Hmm.
somebody and 4 or 5 messages on an app and then 2 or 3 text messages. So that would be my advice on that
Hmm.
aspect of like keep it fun, try and get their number and then call them or like you said, FaceTime them ASAP. And then you can really kind of figure out
Yeah,
what,
no, that's great advice. Well, and keeping things playful keeps things feeling safe. Sometimes people get very, and rightly so, like people do get hardened by their dating experiences. And, we've all gone through it. If you're over the age of like 24, 25, and you're in Utah and you're not married, or just in general, it's hard. Like I'm a 27-year-old girl, and people automatically are like, well, what's wrong with you? Like,
yeah.
why aren't you married? And I'm like,
You're like, I
I'm
don't know.
just
I'm
not. And
asking
that's
myself
okay.
the
I'm
same
like,
thing. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
And well, and it's something that is hard. And I feel like, um, you go on all these dates and there's nothing wrong with you, like at your core, and it's nothing personal, but after so long, it does start to feel personal.
Right.
And I think you really do have to make an effort to keep things lighthearted because there are people, you'll probably see profiles where people are like, if you don't message me back within 20 seconds and if you're not taking this seriously, like, don't bother swiping up. And they're very hardened
People say
by their
that.
experience. Yes. And they're like very intense. And so I'm like, don't treat this like it's a job interview. You need to, yeah, remain playful, and it's okay to state like what you want and your intentions, but if you're doing it in a way that sounds threatening, there's no way people are gonna actually want to go on dates with you because
Step
that's
one, don't
scary.
be threatening.
Don't be
It's so
threatening.
sad
Yeah.
what you even have to say that, but
Yeah, but it happens. And I feel like people kind of misconstrue like being serious and
yeah.
being straightforward, and they don't realize that they're coming off like way too intense. And it's like, whoa, 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 like we're just here to talk. And if things go somewhere and you want to go on a date, cool, great. Like that's the end of it. But some people are like out here like, do not talk to me, don't even like swipe, don't touch my profile unless like you're super serious about it. And it's like, okay, a lot of times it's like if you get to that point where you feel it's so serious and you feel like your own self-esteem is hanging by a thread, and that one person not responding to your message is just gonna like send you over the edge, it's time to take a step
Yeah,
back
maybe it's
and
time
like
to not
take
be
a
on the
break.
apps.
Yeah, and it's totally okay to take a break. Like I go through phases. I tell my own boss, I'm like, oh, deleted it today. Like can't do it. And it's okay. I think that people think like it's this odds game of I just have to keep going, keep going,
Right.
keep going. But there really is such a thing of burning yourself out, and then you're no longer putting your best foot forward and presenting your true self, and you're not going to attract the people that you want when you're in that state.
Right.
So it's almost better at that point to take a break for you and for other people.
Yeah. No, I've been on like a 7 month break and I've never
Yeah,
felt happier.
as
So
you
I'm
should.
just kidding. But
Single
like,
boy summer. Yeah.
right, yeah. But I would be curious, and this isn't a prepared question, but like what is an okay way to set expectation? Because again, like if you
Mhm.
are somebody that's taking it serious, what's like a way to potentially communicate like, hey, I'm not messing around, but like or is that just something you just kind
Yeah.
of have to deal with? Like you'll get to that later. Like, is there a way to
Yeah.
do that in a non-threatening way?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously, unless you've gone on like quite a few dates with somebody, I don't think you need to sit down and be like, hey, listen, these are my expectations. I think one, just being good at communicating. So many people are afraid to just have adult conversations. And I'm like, if you want a grown up relationship, you got to know how to talk to people and have an actual conversation. And if that person's not willing to or is uncomfortable with that, they're probably not looking for the kind of
Right,
relationship that you're looking for anyway. But B, I would say if there's somebody you're talking to and you're interested, always have like for me as a girl, I'm somebody that I definitely like a little affirmation of, is this person genuinely interested in pursuing me? Always know when you're going to see them next. Does that make sense? So if you've gone on a date with somebody, like, and you want to continue pursuing that and you want to know if they're interested in continuing to be like, hey, like, we should do this. Are you going to be busy this specific day? Always have the next date set so that you know where it's going. And then if for any reason they're like, I don't know, or like, let me see, then more likely than not, they're not as invested in that as you are. So then it's like those expectations are kind of set. And then, if they continue to meet you at that expectation of like, hey, I want to see you this time, or like, hey, let's go do this, and they're it continues to evolve, that's how you get to a relationship, then great, you're on the same page. So that's probably what I would advise.
Yeah. One thing that I do, and I would love your thoughts on this. Probably, I'll send a funny, playful message, get a response, kind of riff with that for a couple messages, and then I'll say something along the lines of like, "I think you're super cute. What are you looking for on here?" And to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
that's led to a lot of really, at least that conversation's been had to me. And
Hmm.
usually I get a response like to that question because I think it's a little bit, I don't think a lot of people, like I could be wrong. I don't think a lot of people are asking that. And so I think it's kind of like a question you want to respond to because you're like, oh, okay, like somebody's actually kind of maybe trying to at least set some form of like, what are you looking for? What are
Expectations.
your
Yeah.
thoughts on that potential approach?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's like obviously keep it light, keep it like don't set irrational expectations on somebody who you like don't even know yet.
Right.
But I think that that's a really safe way to do it, and it also, protects you in the long run. It's like obviously you don't want to be going on these dates and spending all this money with people who are like, "Oh, I'm just not looking for anything." Then
Right.
you're like, "Then why were you here? Why were you on the app?" You know? But some people are just there to make friends and meet people, and that's okay. But I think asking people like kind of what their expectation is and like, are you looking for a relationship or are you just hanging out trying to meet people? Then it's like you both know where you're
Right.
at, you know where to set your expectations, and you can move forward from there.
Well, and this kind of leads into our last question to me of like, how do we make online dating a healthier environment for everybody? To
Yeah.
me, if we're more open about what we're expecting out of this, it's going to eliminate a lot of unnecessary hurt for people. And so,
Yeah.
like, for me, like, I send that message because I know if they respond, I don't know, LOL, I'm like, all right, probably not a good match. But if I
Yeah.
get a response that's like, hey, I've been dating for a while. I'm, I'm just on here so I can try and meet people, but I would be open to, something more serious. And I'm like, okay, like they're actually kind of in that
Cool.
mindset.
Yeah.
And to me, that has created a healthier environment around online dating for me is trying to filter that just a little bit with that question. But I would be curious your thoughts on how do we make this a healthier environment for everybody involved? Because I think it's a pretty I don't know what word I'm looking for, universal experience where you're on these dating apps and you're like, my mental health is being tanked right now. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost universal, unless you're that probably top 0.0001% girl or guy in Utah County where you're like, I just have a billion matches all day. How do we start to shift this to where hopefully that doesn't have to be the case? And maybe that's just part of the game, but what would be your thoughts on trying to shift that
Yeah.
perspective more to where that's not the case?
Yeah. But one thing I think is funny is everybody who's in dating culture, I think our favorite thing is to complain about dating culture, but nobody, I think what's hard is there is no set secret thing that unless everybody universally decides, like, hey, we're all gonna like shape up and act differently, then nothing will change.
Hmm.
And that's a really like, that's an intimidating thing
Well, we should just
that,
stop the podcast now. There's nothing we can do
yeah,
about it.
there's nothing we can do. That's the, no. I think really it's like each individual, like you have to make the decision to if there's certain things that bug you and certain things about culture that you don't like, you need to not perpetuate that yourself. Because a lot of people like to complain about things, and so a lot of times we'll be like, okay, well, what are you doing to fix that? Or like,
Mhm.
what are you doing differently? A lot of times it's like, well, I don't know. And so it's like if there are certain things that you don't like and certain things you don't agree with, then stop feeding into those things and stop doing them yourself. Like, because there's not going to be any shift. And then also just, I think specifically with the apps, understanding that at the end of the day, it's just a tool. It's not supposed to be your only resource. And when people are having a hard time with dating, and I've been there too, I think we all kind of want to look for something to put blame on. And a lot of times it is, well, like, oh, dating culture sucks and like dating sucks because of the dating apps. But ultimately, it's just a platform. It's just a tool. And we can only control the platform, but we can't control the people on it. And so, kind of exactly like what I was saying, you have to understand that the people on there are imperfect people, and we don't have like people have agency to do what they want and within reason. Obviously, if people are like hurting other people, I would say like please report those people. Like
Hmm.
please do because we don't want to contribute to any hurt and things happen unfortunately. But yeah, make sure that, those people are getting reported and so things are probably getting taken care of. But I think exactly just like what we've discussed, like keep your expectations realistic and really, I think what it comes down to is you just need to be honest with people and be willing to communicate and try not to take it too personally when people don't reciprocate that because people have to make that own individual choice for themselves to do that, like reciprocated. So it's hard. It's a
Right.
hard like thing and there's no magic answer.
For you
But there are good
personally,
people
what
out
is
there.
it? Because like you're saying, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what are the things that I'm not okay with and what can I do to change it? Like for you, what are some of
Yeah.
the things you're like, all right, I can't do this, and so I'm gonna make sure I'm not a part of the problem. What are some of those things for you?
Yeah. Well, something I feel like that's been hard for me is if you're somebody who I had a really hard time for a long time turning people away that I knew were genuinely nice people, but I'm like, they're just not my
They're a sweet
person.
soul.
Yeah, well, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to like break this poor person's heart, or, I think they're great, but they're just not for me. I think really just learning how to have those honest, hard conversations, and people are like, well, that's uncomfortable. I think you kind of have to be okay with it being a little
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And if that person values, if you're friends with that person and they value any sort of relationship with you, they'll be okay. And like, it's like life goes on, and like, you'll be okay too and likely you're not going to have a conversation that's going to kill you. So it's like it's hard, but if you're wanting, people to be honest with you, and you're wanting people to be genuine with you, then I would say just reciprocate what you're wanting from other people. And if they don't return that, be okay with that. But you'd be surprised how that goes a really long way when you're just willing to like have an honest conversation with somebody. A lot of times it's really like refreshing and people are surprised that people are honest with them. And so I think that that does make a big difference and can make a major shift if you're willing to do it. So,
Yeah, that's one thing I think I've wanted Carter Anderson to be the flavor that everybody wants. And I
mhm.
think that while that would be awesome, I'm realizing that's not the case. But the people that it's really going to resonate with, it will resonate with them. And so
Yeah,
trying to be that's one thing I'm trying to do more of is trying to more authentically show up as myself instead of just how many matches can I get? And I think one other thing I've been trying to do is if like again I'm not on the dating apps right now, but like if somebody sets me up with somebody and I'm not interested or things aren't going, I've been trying to do a better job at communicating like, hey, this is where I'm at. You seem great, but I'm just not in a place to be
yeah,
dating right
and
now
that's
or
okay.
whatever. And
Yeah,
that's one thing because again, like for that person, they're probably like, oh my gosh, I'm getting someone setting me up and I'm so excited. And then just you don't reach out and they're like, oh my gosh, like then you're just constantly feeling like crap. And so I've been trying, I hate when I feel like that. And so I've been trying to do a better job at if I'm not interested, just to say it. And to, like you said, it's a
yeah.
hard conversation. It's uncomfortable. But to me, I'd rather do that than make somebody else's day feel worse
Yeah.
of just
It's the
waiting.
most respectful thing to do. It's like just be respectful of people and their feelings and be aware of that and just think like, oh, if this situation were reversed, like how would I want that conversation to go with me? And I would hope that somebody would just tell me. And I think that that's the big thing is I know for me personally, I'm like if somebody likes me and is interested in me, great. If they're not, that's okay. I think what really bothers a lot of people is indifference
Hmm.
when they're like in that middle of like, well, I don't know because they won't like, it is or it's not. And so it's like you just have to tell people and let them know. And I think, like you said, just showing up as your most authentic self. Something I really have focused on a lot in the last years, I'm like, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. Like, you're not going to scare off. And I think that there's, a constant game of, oh, I can't text them back too soon because then I'm going to look too interested,
Right.
or I can't say this thing because it's a little too unhinged, or, I'm not perfect in this aspect, so I have to act a certain way. Or, me, I'm like, oh, I have to hide I have a dog because they hate dogs. Like, you're not going to scare off the right person. So just show up as yourself, be your authentic self, say what you mean what you say, and it'll all work out. So,
Unless you're being threatening, then do not do that.
unless you're being
If
threatening,
yourself
yeah,
is
do
threatening,
not.
then you should not be on the apps.
Yeah, maybe
Uh,
reel it back in
real
a
quick
little bit.
before I didn't ask you prepared, so if you don't have a story off the top of your mind, but like what's one of like the most crazy mutual stories or like just
Yeah.
weird or funny? Like do you have any just to to leave us
Yeah.
on a high note, do you have any like crazy, you're like, I
So
can't believe.
this is, yeah, I have a perfect one for this. This goes right along with our threatening thing. So as somebody who works for Mutual, I usually don't put on my profile that I work for Mutual
Mhm.
for reasons because that makes some people spiral. But I had a situation where I had somebody who'd been sending me notes on Mutual, DMing me on Instagram all the time, and I
Notes
wasn't
is the
interested.
like the you like pay for it or it just
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
straight to
Or
their
you get a
inbox.
free one, but it's like straight to the
Okay.
inbox. You can see it. It's like top of their feed. So he'd been sending me notes and messages for probably like 2, 3 years. Like homie was
Years?
consistent. Years. I'm
Wow.
talking years. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, like we need to reel this in a little bit. So I responded to him, probably my mistake. I should have just not. And I was like, hey, like I'm really flattered, but I'm like, and this was truth. I was like, actually, I'm seeing somebody that's getting a little more serious. Like I'm not really, casually dating right now. And that was the truth. And I saw he read it, and that was, silence for a few days. And then I got a call from my boss, and he's like, "Hey, like somebody wrote a review on the App Store and your name is in it and it's not good. It's not nice." And I was like, "Oh my gosh. Like who did I talk to? Who did I make mad?" And I started reading it and I instantly know who it was. And it was just like going off about Utah dating culture, and he's like, "I just want to give a personal shout out to an employee of Mutual," and he uses my full name on there. And this
Yikes.
is like public on the App Store. So it's like breach of privacy. So we were able to get it pulled down. And my boss was like, that was a little scary. Well, for one, he said she talked to me for months and acted super interested. And then the day of our date, she miraculously wasn't interested anymore. And then she banned my account, which I don't have authorization to do. But he like made up this
Mm.
whole thing. And I was like, I have never had a conversation with this man, let alone like. And my boss is like, this is a little scary. Like, is he still on the app? Like, maybe we should check things out and make sure, he hasn't been reported before. So we pull up his profile and his picture, because we can see the pictures people have on their profile. Those rage rooms where people can go and just like break things for fun?
Mhm.
So it's him with a baseball bat and he's standing next to a printer, okay? And there's a paper taped to it, and my name
What
is written
on
on
the
it.
app?
Yeah, and he set that as his profile photo on the app. And we're like, oh, yeah, so don't do that. Like, he was hoping I would stumble across it and be I'm
Well,
like,
you
that's a
did.
crazy thing. Yeah, but I did. It's a crazy thing to do if you've like gone on some dates with somebody, they rejected you and you're mad. But that's an even crazier thing to do if you've never met someone. Like, wild. But yeah,
That's
that was my
insane.
my
I wish I
mutual
had a good story like
stalker.
that. Mine is just ghosting, so no, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
well,
That's
as far as
wild.
you know, right? I
Yeah.
That's what I thought, and then
That's true.
we
There's probably so
discovered.
many girls, as I'm gonna boost my ego. There's probably so many girls
Yeah,
that just
yeah,
went to a rage
so
room and
many.
put my name on it and they're feeling sad.
Yeah,
So,
they're
well,
just mixtapes in their car of songs that only have your name in it. Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, is there, if somebody has questions or wants to reach out, do you have
yeah.
business
I have
email or
Instagram.
Instagram, anything
People
like
can
that where
reach
people
out.
can reach
Yeah,
out?
yeah. My Instagram is just Alexia.Elkington. I do keep it private for obvious
Yeah.
reasons, but people can send me message requests and stuff. And so if you just ask me for free premium, I probably won't respond. But
You
actually,
said
we can do
probably,
a we
so you
can
can at
do
least
we
try
can do a week of free premium. So if people were to DM me, I can probably hook them up with free premium. So
1 week. There you go.
1 week. You
Just
got a
use
week to
the
find your
code.
soulmate, and after
I'm just
that,
kidding.
you're
We
a
don't have,
goner.
yeah. Well, you got to be on there for years, so it probably won't get you that
Yeah.
far, but it's at
Hey,
least
I'm
a
going
start.
on 10 years. We always joke that I'm
You've
Mutual's
been on
longest
Mutual
standing
for 10
user.
years?
On and off for
Oh,
10 years. Yeah. So,
wow. I mean,
yeah, here I
place in the
am.
celestial
So,
kingdom for you for that. That's insane. So,
yeah,
I,
it
I
all works out eventually.
Yeah, I appreciate you
But
coming on here and sharing your wisdom and insights. And again, this isn't is I wouldn't say it's a fun dating world to be in, but to me, I think the more we can do to kind of shift it in the perspective of trying to have people be more authentic, trying to help people be present their best selves in this dating world, we'll be able to make it a lot easier and healthier and hopefully lead to some actual people finding their
it'll work for
person
someone.
and that's what we
Yeah.
want. So I appreciate you being willing to help us out with that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, this has been episode 10. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the stuff. We're there. and we're just getting bigger and better. So thank you again for coming on. We'll see y'all next episode.